Well, there's the final buzzer. Good evening, Ram fans. Welcome to Final Score. Not the best of circumstances tonight. Hopefully, we'll have a large crew out on the show tonight to talk over what we just watched. If you went to the game and you're on, feel free to pop in and tell me what you saw. If you watched it on TV, I'd love to hear you share your comments in the live chat. It was not a pretty sight. That first half was about as bad as it gets, as CSU fell behind early and often. CU had their way with the Rams on their way to a 72-55 win. 43-21, I believe, in the first half, a 22-point lead. CU was led by a guy named Bagot Dak, who can't weigh more than about 180 pounds at about 6'11". His ankles are like pencils. Good athlete, but not a guy you'd expect to score 16 points on you. Guard Julian Hammond had, I think he had 13 points. Did a good job basically keeping CU in check. Trevor Baskin, transfer from Mesa State, somebody CSU was interested in, came off the bench and 9 points and 11 rebounds, and he gave a good complete game to Tad Boyle's group. For the Rams, Jalen Lake 18, Nick Clifford with 10, Kyan Evans with 11, I believe, all in the second half. But it was not a pretty sight. After watching, if you watched my preview on Thursday night, I really thought the Rams would come out and be a little more physical. I thought they ran their offense precisely. I thought they got a lot of good shots, but in the end, I don't think they were ready for the battle it takes to win on the road against a Big 12 team, formerly Pac-12 team. CU may be down from last year, but this is a team that beat UConn. They know how to battle. Yes, they got blown out by Iowa State, but they battled last year's national champs and beat them. And so there's some pretty good stuff they're capable of doing. But all in all, CU was able to run what they wanted to do. I talked in my preview about the rotations. CU will put you in with their offense. They run a lot of screening actions, try and get the ball in the paint, get you to help off of somebody because the first man gets beat. Next thing you know, the ball's flying around. They're very good at finding the open three-point shooter. Looks like you got somebody else who just got home from the game. I actually made it home pretty quick, Aaron. It took a while to get there. I commented to Adam Nigon before the game. It took me about an hour and 5 to an hour and 10 minutes to get to Boulder today. And that was with very limited traffic. It's getting to be a pain in the butt to drive on the Front Range these days. I never liked the trip to Boulder. It's getting worse and worse. But anyway, it was an interesting affair. To the Rams' credit, they came out, they executed, and they won the second half. I believe 34-29, something like that. They were down 22 at the half. They lost by 17. They got it back, I think, within 15. Was the best they did, but they never really were in the game in the second half. They didn't play badly. They made more shots. They didn't really do what they needed to do to dictate what needed to be dictated and to get more physical with the Buffs. If I pull up the box score, let's add the box score here. Let's take a look at the box score. Rebounding, big factor. CSU, that's the first half rebounds. We don't want the first half box score. We want the full box score. Let's flip down. And 33 rebounds for CSU, 44 for CU. As I said, Baskin with 11. Diop had 8, another big guy, 6'9". Their center only had 3, not a good rebounder. But for the Rams, spread out. Neek, obviously the best rebounder on the team, had 8 today. The big surprise, and I've got to give credit to somebody, was Nikola Joppa came off the bench and played 5 minutes in the second half and delivered 4 rebounds, which is one more than Jalen Crocker Johnson had in 13 minutes, which is one more than Rashawn Mbemba had in 14 minutes, and 4 more than Kyle Jorgensen had in 14 minutes. Basically, you had 40 minutes between Jorgensen, Mbemba, and Crocker Johnson, and they had 6 rebounds. 40 minutes, 6 rebounds. Nikola Joppa, 4 rebounds in 5 minutes. Yeah, it was later in the game. Maybe he wasn't going against all the tough guys, but I will tell you, he grabbed rebounds in traffic better than the other guys did, other than Neek, and it was actually really, really good. Mbemba was hurting in the second half. We're not getting the minutes we need out of him. I've talked to you about the statistic of how good the Rams are when they get 15 minutes out of Rashawn. They got 14 minutes out of him. One of the interesting things with Rashawn, if you look, Rashawn was our only plus player today. Rashawn was a +3 in only 14 minutes. When he's on the floor, good things happen for the Rams. When he's off the floor, we struggle. We just don't have the physicality that we need to be able to pull things off. Here we go. Aaron, the fans clearly got in Neek's head. It's also representative of the people in Boulder. Every time Neek touched the ball, the CU fans booed. I don't recall many other fan bases doing that. Neek did not have a good first half. You're right. I don't know if it got into Neek's head or if he was the one just trying to do maybe a little too much, Aaron. He was 1 for 9 in the first half. He could never get settled into the game. He played much better in the second half, shot 3 for 5, made a couple of threes, but he was trying a lot of dipsy-do kind of plays instead of being a real physical player, and he's capable of being that physical player. But I will address the part about the booing. Those fans, I'm going to say it. I'm just going to flat out say it. I think the CU fans, they showed in football, but they really showed it tonight. Probably the worst fans on the planet, worst fans in college basketball. CU fans, if you're out there, come after me. I don't care. Your fans are horrible. You have to realize Tad Boyle ran Neek Clifford out of Boulder. Neek Clifford was run out of Boulder, and you're booing a guy that was run out of there by a coach. That's crazy. That's absolutely insane, absolutely inappropriate. You think you're doing something, you're not. You're more interested in booing somebody on the other team than you are cheering your own team. I'm going to launch on that. I might keep going on that for 10 more frickin' minutes. You're the worst fans. I actually overheard somebody tell Neek Clifford's dad after the game, I'm so glad your son is playing at CSU and got out of this shithole. Well, that person just happened to me. I'm going to come clean. I told him that. I won't tell you what he said. That's not important. It is a shithole, that crowd. And here's something that Corey wanted to know. Did Jorgensen play a minute in the second half? I'd have to look up the box score. I don't think he did. There was an incident when he went to the bench and got talked to by a coach, and he did not respond in a very mature way. Respond the way a freshman would, not interested in receiving coaching. And I'm going to guess that had something to do with his playing time, Corey. It was something that happens. He's young. He's a freshman. We're still going to support him. He didn't have a good game. Neither did Jalen Crocker Johnson. Neither did a bunch of other guys. So, Aaron, thank you. Preach, brother. You started it. I'm going to finish it, and I'm ready to. I'm just sick and tired of that stuff. Those people are the flat out worst. They really are. Nick with a question. Thoughts on Kyan so far? You know, we saw Kyan light it up against a lesser team, Loyola Marymount. Not a horrible team, but a lesser team on Wednesday night. Tonight, he struggled a little bit. He had a couple of open shots. He played good in the second half. He started getting more assertive, getting into the paint. It's critical for our guards to get into the paint with this team. And then we can distribute the ball a little better. Jalen Lake had an unbelievable game. He was 3 for 7 in the first half. He ended up, I believe, 6 for 13 or 6 for 14. He was basically the only one getting to the free throw line. Kyan got there once, shot and got fouled. Jalen drew 5 fouls, or shot 5 free throws, drew several fouls going to the basket. But we need to do more of that. I thought Kyan had a good second half. Here we go. Look at this comment. Love the hoodie, missing your drawstring. That's my Highland Meadows hoodie. I wore it proudly tonight. Chad is a good friend of mine. Chad is also managing partner of Highland Meadows Golf Course. So, Chad, you know I'm always going to represent the golf course, especially in Boulder. And I know you had a kid who went to Boulder. I can't believe, and thank God he graduated and got out of that shithole. Corey, I thought it had something to do with Jorgensen's refusal to try and get a rebound. Well, that's what I think the discussion was about, that he needed to do maybe a better job of boxing out and going after the ball. And I don't think he responded from what I heard I didn't get this from the coaches. I got this from somebody who was sitting about 2 or 3 rows behind the bench, which reminds me, let me bring something else up about a game in Boulder. If you try and tell me that you've ever been to a college basketball game where you have 2 cops behind the opposing team's bench in the second half, I have never seen a cop behind a bench at a college basketball game. You tell me, what the heck are they doing there? We were joking about it, saying maybe they were trying to keep Ali's wife, Mallory, and my friend Luke Kingsley's wife, Katie, from attacking somebody because they're so violent. Unbelievable. Cops behind the opposing team's bench like they're worried that something's going to happen. That is absolutely ridiculous. I'm sorry. I've used the word shithole enough. I'm going to use it one more time. That place is a shithole. And I will stop now on that rant. Getting back to the box score. I wanted to point out a few other things. And that was the starters. The first half, we already talked, the 43-21 first half. And you can see how the starters shot. They were 5 for 24 in the first half, and Jalen Lake had 3 of them. Neek made 1 shot. Rashawn Mbemba had an and 1 early in the game. Crocker Johnson, nothing. Kyan Evans, nothing. 5 for 24 out of the starters, basically 22%. That ain't going to cut it, and it has some to do with CU. I'll give them credit. They do a good job using their length, but there were a lot of missed shots and a lot of wild-ass shots, and it was just poor execution in the first half. I shouldn't say poor execution. The offense was running. The finishing wasn't tough enough. They just were not focused enough. I don't know how many times I saw the ball pass to somebody underneath the basket, and rather than trying to finish or draw contact or even get the ball blocked in their face and go get the ball again, the ball was passed out from underneath the basket and sometimes thrown away. And, it's like, why would you demand the ball underneath the basket if all you're going to do is just going to throw it out to somebody open at the 25 feet away from the basket? Bigs have to finish. That's just the way it goes, and they didn't do it. That's one of the reasons I wanted to pull up the second half, the first half box score. This is the first half box score. Look at the minuses. Everybody a minus. The best players are -7. The worst players -17. No one had a good first half. Jalen Lake was 3 for 7, but I won't say he had a great first half either. The thing that was really disturbing, I talked in my preview about how CU turns the ball over and there'd be an advantage if we would rebound. I talked about how there'd be an advantage in terms of turnovers. And lo and behold, CSU did a very good job in terms of not turning the ball over. 11 turnovers, all right? 17 for CU. CSU was +6 in the turnovers. That is a very important component of their game. Did it lead to much? No. 6 points fast break. But the rebounding margin was what killed them. And you saw 11-2 second chance point margin by CU, and that was the rebounding advantage. That was the 44-33 rebounding advantage. It basically did CSU in. So here we go. First half, horrible shot selection, horrible defense. I thought some of the shot selection was actually okay, Corey. Some of it was a little wild. I thought, like I said, Neek, I think, tried to do a little too much a couple of times rather than finishing strong off of 2 feet, and I'm sure he'll get some feedback on that. Any thoughts on the massive lack of assists tonight? Parker, I think there's 2 things that cause that. I'm going to point to one example, and don't take this as a criticism of Kyan Evans, but they ran a really, really good play. And he had, I think it was Ethan Morton made a really good cut underneath the basket. Kyan was late with the delivery and panicked and threw the ball about 5 feet over Ethan's head. And then this is the second part of it. You can't get assists if you can't make a shot. I think if you're going to shoot 30% on the game, 25% in the first half, you're going to see the assists down. The field goals were so low. What did we have in terms of total field goals? 20 field goals. We could have had 5 to 7 more assists with made shots, and we sure missed a bunch of shots. But it'll be a lesson for this team coming out in the first half. It was the first true road game. I got a comment from somebody. I just noticed this. Why didn't Morton play more? Was he hurt? I think he played enough tonight. I don't think Ethan had his best game. He was struggling tonight. And I'm not going to say anything more about that. It was not a good game. Let me hit up the thing I wanted to talk about in terms of just physical play. I don't know what it looked like on TV. It looked like there was a little bit of banging, and credit to CU. They used their size very, very well. And when they went after balls in the paint, they were very decisive about getting the balls in the paint. And when they drove into the paint, they were very, very decisive about trying to get to the rim. CSU was maybe a little more, not so much tentative, but not willing to make the physical effort to do what it takes. And that was disappointing because you are never going to win on the road if you don't out physical the other team. Tim Miles always used to say something to everybody, but I heard him say it to me a million times. And he always said, the aggressor always wins. And when you go on the road, you have to be extra aggressive, extra assertive. And CSU definitely did not win the aggressive battle tonight. CU was the more aggressive team. That's why they won. So here you go. Maybe I'm crazy, but it seems like this offense works better when it actually slows down. Corey, the philosophy of this team and the way this offense is meant to run is they will always try and push the ball in transition. And if they can get a good shot within 8 seconds, they will take what's considered a good shot within 8 seconds. Sometimes they take them what might look like a little quick, but there are shots that they're taking that they're missing that are actually pretty good shots. But then the philosophy there is, from 8 to 10 seconds through all the way into the, basically 20 to 25 seconds, that's when they want to work their offense. And so they're not afraid to hold on to the ball. They want to score quickly. If they can't, they want to grind you down. And so I think what you're seeing is that maybe they're just not very good right now in that transition, in that first 8 seconds. So, Corey, I understand that you can't drive a Ferrari if you have a dump truck. I don't know. I think there's enough speed on this team, and I think there's enough shooting capability. What I don't think they have necessarily are guys that can break down and break through in transition and get into the paint very easily. I don't think we have the ball handlers that necessarily are of the nature or equivalent of an Isaiah Stevens. Isaiah was incredible about getting the ball into the paint. That was the first thing he always tried to do in transition. If he could score at the rim, he would, but he would try and get the ball in the paint and force the defense to collapse, distribute for threes. Sometimes we take our threes off of perimeter passes. I'm a great believer that threes come a lot easier when the ball is in the paint and distributed out of the paint. If you watch CU tonight, CU was pretty good about getting the ball into the paint. You'd watch a pass go to the corner, and then you'd see a second pass to a guy open on the perimeter. Most of their threes were not what I would consider tough threes. All three. I mean, you still got to make the shot, but usually it came off of maybe a second or third pass to a guy who was wide open after the Rams defense was put into rotation. They didn't really make a lot of threes over outstretched hands. In the second half, I thought CSU's defense was actually pretty good. And as I said, we rebounded a little better. I'm not going to pull up the second half box score. Like I said, CSU was a +5, outscored CU by 5, but that wasn't, that the story was they played a little better. They still didn't make the shots they needed to make to drive the comeback. The first couple of possessions early in the second half were actually really, really good possessions. We saw a Mbemba 3 spin out. We saw an Evans 3 spin out. We saw Clifford in the paint jumper spin out. Those are shots, if they drop early on in the half, maybe you get that 23-point lead down to 13, and there's hope, but they never really got it much inside of 20, and the lead went pretty much between 18 and 25 in the second half before CSU hit a couple of shots late from Lake, and then free throws from Lake and Evans down the stretch. So it was a better second half, but disappointing overall. We got leadership out of Lake. We got good effort out of Clifford, but I don't think it was his best game. Neek tried to force a little too much. We got a good second half out of Kai and Evans. And we got 5 great minutes out of Nicola Joppa. But I didn't mention Keyshawn Williams. Keyshawn came in. We struggled defensively when Keyshawn was in the game, but at least he made a couple buckets, hit a good 3, made one at the rim. So it wasn't like he was poor. They were just not good enough. And like I said, too many starters offered, too many people came off the bench and offered, and you can't do that. If you're not going to make your shots and you're not going to be tougher than the other team, you have no chance on the road. I don't care who you're playing. You're going to lose to San Jose State and Fresno if you play like that, come out and play a half like that. So it was a disappointing game, disappointing night. I ran into good friends, Joel Cantalamessa, Mike Rowe, John Bowler. And it was good to see them. The ramnation.com guys, they were a little disappointed. They were sitting a few rows right in front of me. I talked to a few people after the game. No one's down. Everybody knows this is a work in progress, and I'm not down on this team. I happen to believe there's some good stuff available to them, but they have got to look at themselves in the mirror and say, what could I have done better? How can I take what the coaches are telling me, and how can I play winning basketball, especially when I'm on the road, especially when I'm against a good team? You're going to get the next game. You got a week to prepare for a team that is right on the edge of being a top 50 team, Virginia Commonwealth. They're a good program and a good team, and it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens there, because this CSU has got to come out. Virginia Commonwealth will play them very physical. They've always had a very physical program. So we will see what happens in terms of Virginia Commonwealth next week. And then we come home to Radford for our last game before conference schedule starts. And I got some news for you about Radford. Radford is bordering on top 100. They are better than Loyola Marymount. They're better than Tennessee State. They're better than uh, Cal UC Riverside. So that won't be cake either. The last two non-conference games, they're winnable if this team plays like they can. They've shown they can play good teams, but they're going to have to really get their mindset wrapped around really being assertive, being physical, winning those battles, winning the boards. If they lose the boards by 11, they're not going to win many games unless they shoot lights out from three. I don't want to have to depend on that. I didn't pull up the points in the paint, but I guarantee you we got outscored in the paint. I'm going to tell you a story about another game that was played today. Boise State, a very good team, the team that I thought was going to be tops in the Mountain West, and they are a very good team. They played in Boise, neutral site, a mile away from campus, against Washington State, and Boise State went down by 20 in the first half, got outscored. This is Boise State with two all-conference bigs, a 5 and a 4 who were first and second team all-conference last year, and lo and behold, they got eaten up in the paint to the tune of 28-12. You're not going to win games at the Division I level if you lose the paint 28-12, and I can guarantee you, CU won the paint scoring by quite a bit. It's I don't even have to look at it. Here's a good question, Parker. Do you think Joppa is deserving of more minutes going forward? This is a really, really good question because, I don't think they're necessarily 100% comfortable that Nicola knows everything he needs to know for the offense to run effectively, for the, like inbounds plays. They have to tell him kind of where to go. He came in a little late. He came in and he was hurt. He missed a lot of practice, but I think they have to think about it, Parker, to be honest with you. Like I said, 4 rebounds in 5 minutes. That's more than that's 2 less than the other 3 bigs got in 40 minutes. I don't know what to say. They need to be more consistent in terms of grabbing rebounds. But that's a great question. I see there's almost 100 people out there, and I've got about 4 people asking questions. People, if you got comments, if you got thoughts on the game, feel free to fire them at me. This is our community. This might be my YouTube channel, but this is for all of us, and it's for all of us to share what we're thinking. This is Corey's comment before. If you can't rebound and turn it over, you have no chance. Starts with rebounding. Corey, you would have been a wonderful fan and a wonderful proponent of a coach who was here before Nico, Larry Eustace. Nico worked a year under him before he took the Furman job. Eustace was not the greatest offensive mind and not the greatest guy on the planet, and I'll leave it at that. But I can tell you right now, his teams were unbelievably good rebounding teams, and they would spend entire practices beating the crap out of each other rebounding. He also was very, very good about limiting turnovers. And that was the 2 things that he always talked about and stressed. So I agree with you there, Corey. Rebounding and turnovers are the 2 things. The Rams, when they out rebound the other team, are very good. They are good about causing turnovers. Defensively, they're good at getting deflections. Like I said, they forced 17 turnovers out of CU. So that was good. But the rebounding thing is too big an edge. A couple of guys had career games for CU. Some of that's on us. Some of that is them just being exceptional. Look at this. My roots are in the old Big East when the games were like football games. The lack of effort kills me. You know what's really funny about those Big East games, Corey? I used to like those Big East games too because they weren't just physical. They weren't just like football games, but they had guys that could shoot too. I mean, they had these 6'8", 240-pound trucks out there, and they could shoot. I have a hard time watching Big East games now because they have so many teams with guys that play that way, but they can't shoot. And so they become really just nothing but crazy playground battles. And it gets kind of boring. But I hear you. I I could talk about the team we had Eustachy's first year. It was the team that Tim Miles built, and Eustachy came in and inherited it when Tim took the Nebraska job. And that team was the best rebounding team that the NCAA has ever seen. They had about a plus 15 rebounding margin over the entire year. They were top 5 in terms of defensive and offensive rebounding percentage, and no team in the NCAA has ever done that. And that team was a Sweet 16 team if they had not had to play Louisville in the second round in Lexington. Corey, it goes a little bit before you started following the Rams, but we had an unbelievable rebounding team. We had 3 guys who could get double-digit rebounds, and they didn't stop until they had the ball. So I don't know if it was effort. Sometimes I think that guys aren't just natural rebounders. I've seen some really, really good rebounders, and that's kind of what I was getting at with Joppa tonight. Joppa takes up space, but he also seems to go after the ball pretty well. Maybe it's his European roots. Maybe it's just his physical talent. But you've got to get, if you're in traffic, Nick Clifford's the best rebounder of the team, and I'm not gonna talk anything down from him. He has the ability to rebound in traffic. He also has the ability to rebound 4 feet away from the traffic. He's got such long arms and such. He's got effort. Jalen Lake rebounded pretty well today. Jalen's never been a great rebounder, but the last couple of games he's had like 5 rebounds and 6 rebounds, I think. So he's doing what it takes. The other guys need to pitch in, and I have no idea what they were doing out there, but they sure had a hard time getting the ball. So I'm going to wrap up. I really thought it was disappointing. I thought the Rams were going to win. I really thought after seeing the last couple of games, I had been so encouraged by the TCU game, about the way they fought in that game. And then what we saw against Loyola Marymount, we started seeing a rebounding advantage. Here you go. Defense and awful shot selection in the first half. I would say it wasn't just the defense; it was the lack of physicality on both ends of the floor that resulted in bad shot selection. You got to set better screens to free people up. You gotta be more physical on the defensive side, coming off screens, fighting through screens, and I don't think they were good enough. But I think it was discouraging tonight. If you looked at the second half of the game they played 2 years ago and the first half of today, I did the calculation. In those 40 minutes, CU outscored CSU 98-56. That's not even competitive in a rivalry series. You are not going to win, as I said, you are not going to win a rivalry game unless you go in and you are the aggressor and you're the one knocking the other team around. I sent a text to somebody. It was in the second half. Mbemba fouled somebody and put somebody into the floor. It was the first time we fouled somebody. It didn't come to the second half before we fouled somebody in the floor. And then I sent a text to him saying, I hope we put Joppa in to deliver that Euro hard foul. They put him in. He never had to deliver a hard foul. He did a good job there. But anyway, very disappointing. And you just got to take it for what it is. You lost a rivalry game. Your record is 5-4. You had an opportunity for a big win on the road against a rival, top 100. Definitely could have been a quad 1 game. It could be a quad 1 game if CU gets up into the 75 range, and it will be a quad 2 loss, or maybe a quad 1 loss. But those are the opportunities in the non-com that you try and schedule. This team right now doesn't have the goods. I will also let you know, and if you've listened to me before and you've to any of my streams, Coach Medved told me over the summer that the team he plays in the non-conference may not be the team he starts come the first conference game. And we might be headed that way after tonight, after what we saw when they look at the tape. We basically have two dependable players in Clifford and Lake. We have a good player who's a plus player who can't stay uninjured, Rashawn Mbemba. We have a developing point guard who's showing signs in Kyan Evans. And quite frankly, the other guys, you don't know what you're going to get from game to game to game. And it's understandable with some of them, but others are experienced players and they're just not delivering. I have a comment from Mile High Minute, tough loss. It was beyond a tough loss. It was a brutal loss. They were not competitive. I can tell you, they looked like, the sad part is, it's funny. They looked like they were going to get it together after a terrible start. 12-5 right out of the chute. Timeout by Nico. Next thing you know, they're going to the basket. They're getting buckets. They get it to 14-11. And CU, I think the next time I looked up, I can't remember who hit I think Keyshawn Williams hit the three. It was 30-11 when he scored the next points. CU went on a 16-point run. The number 11 is starting to get to me, going all the way back last year to the San Diego State game when we had an 11-point second half against San Diego State out in Viejas after leading by 14 at the half and then ended up losing by 16. I think we got outscored 41-11, 11 points and a half. The number 11. And then we played Texas in the NCAA tournament. And lo and behold, score 8 points, lead the game 8-2, and then score 3 points in the last 13 minutes on a Joe Palmer three. And we end up at 11. So there's something about the number 11 that's going to drive me crazy. Tonight, 11 points. We were stuck on 11 for I don't know how long before Keyshawn hit that three. I didn't look it up. I didn't have the time to check out box scores on the way home because I had to drive home from that. You know what? I promised I wouldn't use that word again. So anyway, thanks for watching. We're all disappointed. I will have the plan is to have Neek Clifford on my Monday morning cup of coffee show with Brady Hull. I have to touch bases with Neek. I did tell him I was hoping we'd have a win, but we talked about coming on win or lose, and I want to have him on the show. He's an extraordinary player, an extraordinary young man, represents CSU very, very well. And yes, he will be a draft pick in the NBA. And then we'll see who we're going to get for a guest next week. And then obviously the VCU post-game show next Saturday. I'll also do a Mountain West show with my friend Tom Moser sometime midweek. We haven't decided necessarily what game we're going to do. We had a lot of fun doing games last Wednesday and had a large number of people when we broke down both the New Mexico San Jose State game and the Utah State Wyoming game. And those are a lot of fun, those post-game streams. So please join me. Thanks for popping in, everybody. I really appreciate the support. I appreciate all the comments. Corey, thanks for staying up late. I know it's midnight back on the East Coast. All these other people popping in. My friend Chad, Parker, Aaron, thanks for popping in. Nick, Mile High Minute, all of you guys, thanks for popping in. Everybody else, have a great evening. Go Rams.